I know you're not supposed to judge books by covers, but it was too pretty to leave in the bookstore. It was too pretty. Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Nada. If you're new here, I make videos about books, TV, movies, apparently. Really anything that I feel like talking about, and this week I'm going to be talking about books again. Today's video is going to be the Mid-Year Book Freakout TAG. Kind of just something in the booktube world where you can like catch up your audience on the books that you have read so far this year and how you feel about them. I'm just going to be talking about the books that I have read and enjoyed or not enjoyed this year and letting you know my feelings on them. Lots of new things happening in my life though. I got new glasses. What do we think? If you see like kind of a bluish tint on my glasses in this video, it's because I got blue light glasses because I'm staring at screens all day, every day. I re-pierced my nose. I have a little crescent moon inside of my nose ring. I got a tattoo that you can't really see very well on camera like this. I'll see if I can insert a picture or video of me getting the tattoo. Essentially, it says it takes work, which, long story short, is just kind of a reminder to myself every time I look at it that everything that I want in life and everything worth having in life requires work in order to obtain it. Also, I uploaded my most viewed to date video, my last video, which was about In the Heights. If you haven't seen that, I'll link it up in the cards somewhere. I encourage you to go watch it. I was talking about essentially the controversy around the casting and the lack of diversity in tones of the Latino people portrayed in that film. Like I said, that is my most viewed video on my channel to date, and I would be lying if I didn't say that part of the reason why I haven't been uploading over the past month is because it kind of freaked me out, the response to that video, and like having people actually pay attention to what I had to say. That was super weird for me, and I got my first hate comments ever. It's a nice little initiation into the creation of YouTube video. Yeah, I was kind of freaked out by how many views that video got, and I know that like in the grand scheme of things, that video did not get that many views, like compared to some of the bigger videos on this platform. I haven't gained that many subscribers, but for me it's a lot. And so for every single person that watched that shared that liked that, commented, that subscribed to me after seeing that video, I really appreciate you, and I thank every single one of you for just listening to anything that I had to say. That is a long, embarrassing way of introducing this video. And now we can get into the Mid-Year Book Freakout TAG. This tag is comprised of 13 questions about all of the books that I have read so far this year. So let's just get started with question number 1. What is the best book I've read so far in 2021? The answer to that would hands down have to be Homegoing by Ya Jassy. What a book. I know I've enjoyed a book when I finish it. Well, I know I felt strongly about a book when I finish it and I put it down and I start crying. And that's what happened to me after I read Homegoing. This book, it was not tears of sadness. Well, yeah, tears of sadness, but also tears of happiness, of joy, of enjoyment. I felt like the way that the book wrapped itself up was so beautiful, and I don't know, it was just very evocative for me. If you were not on BookTube in all of 2018 when that book was like kind of doing the rounds, and you, like me, foolishly did not read it then. Essentially, Homegoing is a novel about two sisters in Ghana in the 16th century who lives kind of take divergent paths. One of them is married off to a white provincial governor who sells slaves in Ghana, and the other one is sold into slavery, I assume, by her sister's husband. And it tracks their descendants through the generations. The one family in mainland Africa dealing with the consequences and spiritual, emotional, literal ramifications of being a part of an enterprise that involves selling your fellow man, and the other side of the family in the United States dealing with the spiritual, emotional, physical ramifications of having been sold. Go read that book if you are somebody who is interested in Black history, if you're interested in African American history, African history, all of that stuff. Really excellent book that goes into colonialism, racism, Jim Crow, the prison industrial complex, drug abuse, like all of these things from like the 1600s to the 1980s. Highly, highly, highly recommend that book. Best book I've read. It was super emotional for me as a first generation African American. So yes, go read it. The best sequel that I have read so far in 2021, and that is hands down The Bride's Test. The Bride Test by Helen Hoang. Such a good book. Such a good book. So fulfilling. Oh my god. It was... okay, yes. So, basically, The Bride Test is the sequel to Helen Hoang's smash hit first book, The Kiss Quotient, which was about a woman with autism who hires an escort to teach her how to have sex so that she can get married, because her parents really want her to get married. And then obviously they fall in love because it's a romance novel. The Bride Test, the follow-up, is about the escort to the woman hired in the first book. His cousin also is autistic. His mom really wants him to get married, and so she goes back to Vietnam, where they're from, and like finds a woman who she deems appropriate to be his wife, and brings her to the US, and is like, you have X amount of time to get him to want to marry you. If he wants to marry you by the end of this time, great, you guys will get married, perfect. And so she just kind of like moves into his house with him and like becomes a part of his life. She has to like find her way in the United States, and she has a whole backstory where she like had a child when she was really young. It's a really, really nice book that I super enjoyed. Have had a lot of fun with romance novels this year. I'm going to talk about some mystery novels that I read later on that were also a lot of fun for me. I just think that the way that Helen Hoang writes her prose and writes her characters are always so compelling, and it's like you want them to win. And I even think that it was better than The Kiss Quotient. But I felt like the central relationship in The Bride Test was a lot more compelling, and the two characters, not that they had more chemistry, just that like it's kind of apples to oranges, but I just liked Esme and Kai's relationship. Those are the two main characters. I thought it was really sweet. I loved the way that it developed, and I felt like it was like a natural progression. A new release that I haven't read yet but really want to, and I actually have, you can kind of see it in the corner down here, I have this book with me and I'm so excited to read it. This is Love in Color by Bolu Babalola. So I made a anti-haul a few months ago talking about books that were coming out, my thoughts about them, whatever, and this book came up in it, and I said in that video that if I saw it in a bookstore, I was definitely going to buy it. And I did see it in a bookstore while I was in England, and I went ahead and bought it. I just like, this cover is beautiful. I know you're not supposed to judge books by their covers, but bitch, what? It's so pretty. Look at it's gorgeous. I'm really excited to read this. This is essentially a bunch of short romance stories that are based on different mythologies from around the world. There's like a story about a Nigerian goddess, a story about a Ghanaian politician or political spokesperson. I've heard great things. I also follow the author Bolu Babalola on Twitter. I love her Twitter account. I think she's so funny, and when she was tweeting about the process of writing this book, I was like, I didn't know she was an author. I'm super excited to check that out. And the last part that makes me really excited about this book, look at these edges. Look at the edges. Look at them. I've never seen a book with colored edges like this in the United States. I know you're not supposed to judge books by covers, but it was too pretty to leave in the bookstore. It was too pretty. Question number 4 is the most anticipated release of 2021 that is coming out in the second half of the year. And that is Beautiful World, Where Are You by Sally Rooney. That comes out on the 7th of September in 2021. And my body is ready for some more Rooney. I read her 2 novels, Conversations with Friends and Normal People, I think 2 years ago in like 2019, and I loved them. I watched this video and I think this girl said that like normally you're either a Conversations with Friends person or a Normal People person. I loved both of them. I really enjoyed the plots of both of those books. I think Sally Rooney's prose is beautiful and amazing. I don't even know what this book is about. I did read the synopsis before I filmed this video on Amazon. I still can't tell you what the plot of the book is. Some about the apocalypse and a group of friends that have some sort of incestuous relationship where they swap partners. I don't know, but I'm going to read it and I'm going to enjoy it. This, like, Sally Rooney is one of those writers who, for me, it's not about. I just love the way that she writes. So she could write, like, a Safeway, like, ad, like a weekly ad leaflet, and I would be like, yes, Sally, tell me about the discount tomato soup. Yeah, highly recommend her. Question number 5, my biggest disappointment, and that would have to be A Game of Cones by Abby Collette. I bought it and I was so excited to read it. It's about a girl named Bronwyn who runs her family's ice cream shop that's like been in her family for generations, and she also, somebody gets shot in her neighborhood, or somebody gets shot in her small town in Ohio, and she has to investigate the murder because one of her friends is implicated in it. Sounds great. Love a mystery, love ice cream, love black people. The main character is black, and so is the author. I did not like the writing of this book one bit. Did not enjoy it. I did not like it. I like the main character, Bronwyn, fine enough, but she's kind of like papery, you know, she's kind of like a little bit flat. Her friends are so annoying and so confusing. I think I would understand their appeal more if I had read the first book, which, based on the Goodreads reviews, I feel like I didn't miss that much with that one, not having read that one either, unfortunately. But I don't understand why she's friends with the people she's friends with. They're all very obnoxious and rude, and she's not at all, so it's kind of confusing. Oh, I also felt like the writing style was a little bit didactic. Like, there was a lot of telling rather than showing, I guess you could say, which, like, showing in detective novels can get really annoying because it's like, just tell me. Like, if you had a thought, you just had a brainwave, like, literally just tell me. I'm here to know. I might end up, I think I'm going to give it another go over this next week. I might end up DNFing it. I don't know. I'll keep you guys posted on that. But yeah, it just, like, I did not enjoy it. I'm really sad because I love ice cream and there's like cute little ice cream recipes in the back. Okay, number 6, the biggest surprise. That would have to be Take a Hint, Danny Brown by Talia Hibbert. One day I was in Barnes & Noble and I was kind of sad and I was just like, I want a book. So I picked up Take a Hint, Danny Brown. I thought it was Get a Clue. Get a Life, Chloe Brown. Was not. I brought it home and I was like, oh, this is not the book that I thought that it was. I thought it was the first in the series and it's the second in the series and it's about this rugby guy and I don't care about sports. Ooh. But actually, it's really fun. Danny is such a fun protagonist. She's like this Sagittarius with shaved, pink dyed hair. She's bisexual. She does witchcraft. She like prays to Oshun. All of this really cool stuff. And her love interest in the book, Zaf, is like sweetheart. It's like a big buff teddy bear with a heart of gold. And yeah, I really enjoyed reading it. If you don't know the plot, it's basically this girl named Danny Brown who's looking for a buddy. And she prays to Oshun for one and then gets trapped in an elevator with this guy named Zafir who she works with. They end up going viral because he like carries her out of the elevator, and then they decide to have a fake relationship to help get publicity for his charity where he helps children with their emotional problems using sports. It's all very it's a little bit complicated. It's a little bit complex, but it's really fun to read. Question number 7. Who is my favorite new author? Debut or new to me? That is Agatha Christie. She isn't really new to me, but because I read And Then There Were None when I was in high school, and I really enjoyed it. But when I was in England, I got Death on the Nile from this like cute little antique bookshop in Eton, and then I also ended up buying Lord Edgware Dies when I like went to the bookstore there. I'm really into the way that she writes mystery. I like the way that she develops it. I love Hercule Poirot, if I'm going to be esoteric about it, as a protagonist and as a detective. I thought maybe I would get into a Miss Marple book next before I got Lord Edgware Dies, but I chose that one instead, and I kind of wish that I had chosen a Miss Marple book, because if you've read both Death on the Nile and Lord Edgware Dies, like the Venn diagram of those people is probably like this big, who also like happen to be watching this video. It's probably a very small niche, but I think you would understand why I wish I had read something else. But I read this, and I find her writing so enjoyable. It's so easy to just like get through. You just like fly through like pages and pages of this prose. I think Death on the Nile was like 400 pages long, and I read it in 3 days. Lord Edgware Dies was like 280 pages, and I read it in 2 days. Like, it's so easy to sink your teeth in and fly through. That being said, Miss Christie's her writing is racist, and it's anti-Semitic, and I didn't know those things until I started reading Death on the Nile. There's a lot of passages in Death on the Nile where her characters are talking about they're like doing a tour in Egypt, looking at the pyramids and shit, and they're talking about the natives of Egypt, and they're like,
oh, they're so ugly, I hate their disgusting curly brown hair and their gigantic black noses and their huge lips, they're so ugly.
Just is like really distasteful, mostly because it's not clear if we're supposed to look at those people and think that they're short-sighted and behind the times and bad for being racist, or if we're supposed to look at their worldview and understand Egypt as a place where there's all of these beautiful ancient artifacts, but the descendants of the people who created those ancient artifacts are disgusting, horrible swamp monkeys who just want to steal your money from you. So, did not like any of that. And then in Lord Edgware Dies, there's a character who is described as being of a Semitic persuasion, which they know because of her love of money, and she'll do anything for money, and she ends up dying because she's so obsessed with money. And it's like, okay, girl, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. And the thing is, like, these things are kind of presented as fact in the book in a way that made me uncomfortable. The other thing, too, is that the original title of And Then There Were None was 10 Little N-Words. So it's a lot of race things happening, a lot of ethno-religious negativity from Miss Christie, but still the prose of the book was interesting and enjoyable to read. So would I recommend you purchase her books? No, but if you can get them from a library, from a used bookstore, there's that. Number 8 is my newest fictional crush. I don't really crush on fictional characters that often. Like, that's not really something that I do. I really feel yucky, and oh my god, I'm not like other girls in this moment, but like, I don't really, like, when people are talking about their Disney princess crushes from when they were growing up, I'm like, I didn't have any because they were cartoons. Yeah. We're moving on. So my newest favorite character. Ooh, who's my newest favorite character? I think maybe my newest favorite character, and this feels kind of inappropriate because this isn't like a fictional book, it's a memoir, but I read In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado while I was in England, and I just love her. I love the way that she wrote that book. I love her. It's essentially a chronicle of her abusive queer relationship, and kind of talking about how people assume that queer relationships can't be abusive because they're queer, and they kind of ascribe abuse as a feature of heterosexual relationships. And she is saying, like, that's not the case. Like, that abuse comes in various different forms, and this is her story of being in an abusive relationship. So well written, so beautifully vulnerable. I loved that book. I loved again, it feels inappropriate to say that character because it's not really a character. She's a real person, but I guess if you're talking about like memoir and the way that you have to fictionalize certain parts of your life in order to render them in the written word, that would turn her into a character. I'm sorry I just got like super technical there, but yeah. A book that made me cry. I said this at the beginning. I finished Homegoing this year and I cried when I was done with it. It was just really emotional to like read a book that so well represented me and my perspective and my point of view as, I mean, it's written by Yaa Gyasi, who is a Ghanaian immigrant to the United States. She was born in Ghana. Her family is from Ghana, and she I don't know. She's able to render that culture shock and that like the way that it feels to grow up in a culture that isn't your own, but then also not really have an attachment to the, not grow up in a culture that isn't your own, grow up in a culture that isn't your family's and not really have a direct attachment to the culture that's your family's, but then also like I don't know how to describe how I feel about this book. You have to read it. Like the last character in the book, whose name I can't remember right now, and I feel really bad about that. The last character in the book is just like me to a T, and I really enjoyed being able to read from her perspective. What's a book that made me happy? The Tower of Nero by Rick Riordan. It's the end of the Percy Jackson and the Olympians series. Caps it off absolutely beautifully. Essentially, there's like three different series, three like separate pentologies in the like Percy Jackson extended universe. There's Percy Jackson and the Olympians, the Heroes of Olympus, which is like a bunch of different Greek and Roman demigods fighting against Gia and so like Mother Earth and her baby giants, and then they're not babies, but she like gave birth to them. And then there's the Tower of Nero, which is about the god Apollo. At the end of the Heroes of Olympus series, he's cast off of Olympus for something that doesn't really make sense that he apparently did at the end of that series. He is enslaved to a human master, and he has to earn his godly power back by doing work for this human master. So his human master is Meg. She's the daughter of Demeter, which I was so happy to see some Demeter representation in the Percy Jackson and the Olympian series because she's my favorite Greek god. I love her, love spring, love plants, harvest, cereals, all of that. So him and her have to fight off this reborn triumvirate of Roman gods and stop them from destroying New York City and taking over the world. I just thought that it was a really satisfying ending to the Percy Jackson and the Olympian series, like getting to see the way that all of the characters grow and change and where they end up, even like the characters that you meet in the Heroes of Olympus, who I wasn't necessarily as attached to, but I did get more attached to them as I got to see them again in the Tower of Nero series, if that makes sense. Essentially, I feel like Rick Riordan's like third person limited is not Rick Riordan's strongest writing register. I think he really excels at first person, and that's why the Percy Jackson series is so successful and the Trials of Apollo series is so successful because both of those are in first person, so you really get to experience the characters from the perspective of someone, so you know how you're supposed to think about them, what you're supposed to feel about them, and it's not kind of like him just throwing us into a bunch of random people's perspectives and then being like, care about them. So yeah, I enjoyed that. The most beautiful book that I have bought this year so far, that is definitely Felix Ever After by Kaysen Calendar. This book is about Felix Love, who is a transgender, queer, black, young person who is cyberbullied, essentially. Somebody posts his dead name and pictures of him from before he transitioned on the internet, and he decides to retaliate to them by essentially catfishing someone, I think, and then ending up in like a weird love triangle. I don't know. I don't really understand that aspect of the book, but I will once I read it. This cover is not only really beautiful, like look at the way that he looks on it. You can see his like top surgery scars, which I feel like people don't. I don't know, I just think it's kind of cool. And then he's got like these tattoos and these beautiful flowers coming out of his head. But the reason that I love this book, again, is because of the sides. Look at these. Look at the flowers on the side of this book. That just makes reading such a fun experience. It's just so pretty. I absolutely love this. I also got this fun antique bookmark when I was in Eton. And yeah, it's in this book with the flowers being pretty together. And I have been talking for way too long, as per usual. So the final question is, what books do I need to read by the end of this year? And for that, I will just link you to the very long first video that I ever posted to this channel about all of the books that I have bought in my life over the past few years and never even touched. So yeah, I need to finish those at some point and to put the fire up my butt to get through those books, because go watch that video. You'll understand why. That is all I have to say in this video. Thank you guys so much if you got to this point for watching this video. Thank you for sticking with me. If you liked anything that I had to say, definitely hit the subscribe button down below. I would love to see you again. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up, and yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!